Hey guys, Aaron Cybertron Zhang here, and today I'm back with another episode of Road to Ranked where I climb the online series 10 ladder and provide live commentary as I go. Today we're using yet another awesome team built by one of my favorite team builders in Sword and Shield, TSL Tang, who I've linked down in the description below. I think at this point I've probably used almost like 10 of their different teams, and they are just one of the best team builders I've seen in Sword and Shield for both creating really fun teams as well as teams that have like really cool tricks and are very, very strong just in general. So yeah, always a pleasure to try out their teams, and please go check them out on Twitter, link down in the description below. So this is the team centered around a lot of special attackers. You've got fake Tears Whimsicott to enable attackers like Dialga, Special Dragapult, as well as Regieleki. The idea is that you set up Tailwind and then you just go for fake Tears max moves and ideally just pick up knockouts. You don't necessarily even need fake Tears a lot of the times, right? Like Dragapult and Dialga are really strong, can one-shot a lot of non-max mons, but fake Tears can often just take you to the next level and pick up big KOs even on max mons in one hit. So yeah. A lot of fun sets here. You've got Roar of Time on the Dialga as well, so that just maximizes your max Wormwind. And Roar of Time in itself is also a really strong attack where you can go for like fake Tears Roar of Time and potentially just pick up a one-hit KO onto something. So that's another play to watch out for. You've also got safety goggles on this Dialga, so it really improves your matchup against things like Amoonguss and Venusaur. Essentially, they can't do anything into Dialga. Venusaur, I guess, can Max Quake, but that's it. And then Dialga can just retaliate back with the Max Hailstorm, which is really, really powerful. And yeah, the Special Dragapult here is really interesting. I think the main strength in it is that you've got Fire Blast, and that's a move that a lot of players don't expect. That is really, really valuable to Steel types in general, especially Pokemon like Zacian, for example. So you can just go for Fake Tears into Fire Blast or Max Flare and potentially just knock out Zacians. That's really strong. Aleki here is, yeah, a relatively standard Magnus set, but know that there is Rising Voltage, and so that gives you a stronger Max Lightning. Also valuable for late game damage if you actually did Max and Aleki survives a couple of turns. Around the team, you've got Choice Band Urshifu, you've got Trick Room on Dialga and Whimsicott. The Trick Room exists primarily to reverse Trick Room, just because this is a pretty hyper-offensive team and there's not Protect on a lot of Pokemon, so it's valuable to make sure that Trick Room doesn't go up. But at the same time, there are very unique scenarios in which you might actually want to set up a Trick Room, so just keep that in mind. But yeah, like with this team, you're not able to often knock out a Trick Room user on the first turn, so that's why you have Trick Room on two different Pokemon to potentially reverse it. And then finally, you've got Citrus Berry, Indeedee. This is just a really bulky set. You've got Helping Hand mainly to maximize your damage output, and Follow Me obviously to protect your Pokemon. That's incredibly valuable when your main max options are going to be Dialga and Dragapult. Another nice thing about Indeedee, just like the Indeedee male that we previously featured on the channel a couple days ago, is that you are able to set up the Psychic Terrain. In this format, there aren't that many terrain users, so Psychic Terrain is a little bit easier to stay up, and that's generally valuable because in this format, there are a lot of Grimmsnarls, Whimsicotts, and defensive Thunderuses. All three of those can use its Prankster priority boost moves to disrupt you, right? Whether it be something like an Eerie Impulse from Thundurus onto Dialga, or a Scary Face, or a Thunder Wave. Grimmsnarl, of course, gets access to attacks like Thunder Wave or Trick as well. So yeah, Psychic Terrain is just valuable. The main thing you want to think about, though, in Indeedee is how it slots into your team, because it can be a little bit awkward to lead it. It's not as effective as, say, leading Whimsicott and Indeedee male. So it's something you might want to have in the back as a switch-in to deter your opponent from going for those Prankster priority attacks. And then finally, you got Choice Band Urshifu. This thing is just an absolute monster and does a ton of damage across the board. And it's something you often want to use in the late game to kind of just clean up games. So yeah, really excited to try out yet another great creation by TSL Tang. So thank you so much as always for watching. If you enjoyed, please show your support by leaving a like. I'd really appreciate it. And question of the day, I'm curious if you could create a brand new type in Pokemon. What would that type be? You know, and yeah, what would it be good against? What would it be bad against? I'm, particularly curious about this just because there aren't that many new types that have been introduced to Pokemon. So yeah, very eager to see what you all have to say. So let's get started. All right, getting into things here, and it is going to be a Dialga team. Did not expect to have a Dialga mirror here, but that's cool. I've got Grimmsnarl. Grim is scary, mainly because of trick stuff that I can go for. Who do I want to max here? Honestly, leaning towards my Dialga. Now, the problem is if I bring Indeedee instead of Psychic Terrain, I can't go for Fake Tears on their end, and I think that's, like, somewhat problematic. I think I'm just going to go with Whimsicott, Dialga lead here, Dragapult in the back, and then Urshifu as the fourth. Aleki is really bad into both Landorus and Dialga here, so it does not make very much sense. Indeedee is valuable since they do have two Prankster users in Whimsicott and Grimmsnarl. My opponent's team is almost always going to max either Landorus or Dialga, but it could be Choice Band or Choice Scarf Landorus with Telepathy Dialga. If that were the case, though, you really limit your options to solely maxing Dialga, which I would be okay with because we can two-shot it for sure with the Fake Tears into a max move combo. Maybe even one-shot it. So we'll see. I think, as always, the scariest thing about Grimmsnarl is just not knowing what moves it gets full access to. Or not knowing which moves it's going to be carrying. We know which moves it can be carrying, but out of all of those, what set are you going to be? Is it going to be the Trick, Full Instance, Iron Ball, Eject Button set? And even with those, right, all of those have different effects, so you have to be careful about each individual one. Is it going to have Fake Out? Is it going to just be dual screens with Light Clay? You know, endless options. You're going to go with Grimmsnarl and Dialga, okay. I have to respect Fake Out as well, which is scary here. Curious if they're pressure or telepathy. It's probably telepathy with Landorus on their team. I think the main thing here, honestly, is covering for... I mean, Dialga could even Trick Room here, which is scary, but I'm just going to go for a Moonblast into Grimm as well as a Flash Cannon, I think. I really don't want to max Dialga and get tricked here on turn 1. And I also don't want to Tailwind in case they set up Trick Room. There's a lot that can happen with this lead from their end, so the thing is, I never have like a 100% safe play. Maybe the best bet would be Fake Tears max Wormwind into their Dialga, but even then, yeah, they are gonna max. I'm generally okay with that maxing here, I think, especially with Choice Band Urshifu in the back. Because honestly, like Bandit close combat and then like just any chip damage. Well, I wouldn't say chip, but I would say like 25 to 35%, and maybe it's enough to just KO Dialga afterwards. Main question is what Grimmsnarl goes for on turn 1. Alright, it is just light screen. I'm okay with that, I guess. Like the reason I made the play I did is because I cannot afford maxing Dialga and then getting tricked like a full incense, for example. So we should still knock out Grimmsnarl, which is pretty good. And you didn't set up Reflect, so Choice Band Urshifu is looking quite nice right now. And even if Wormwind one-shots... Actually, if Wormwind one-shots Dialga, that gets awkward. But I'll probably just bring in Urshifu in close combat. Oh, but it's going to be Max Hailstorm. Okay. So they don't set up Tailwind as... Or sorry, I don't set up Tailwind as a result. Now they can bring in Whimsicott and then set up Tailwind on their end, which could be a pretty big issue for us. Nicely done. Okay. And it's going to be Life Orb. So it's like if I knew they were going to be Life Orb and they were going to Light Screen turn 1, my best play would have been to just Tailwind Max Steel Spike, because I think Max Steel Spike would still KO even with the boosts. But I'm going to go into Urshifu now. The interesting thing now is, do you have Whimsicott in the back? And do you just bring that out? Because if it's not Whimsicott, my Dialga just outsped their Dialga. You can just double up onto it, potentially for a KO. So Whimsicott coming out from their end makes the most sense to me, and that would be pretty scary in this position. But they bring out Landorus. Okay. Now the question with Landorus is, what item are you? You did get an Intimidate onto Urshifu as well, which isn't amazing. Truthfully, I want to just go for close combat into Dialga, Dynamax, and Max Wormwind. Mainly because Dialga is just such a big threat offensively right now. I'm outspeeded with my Dialga, and even if they're Choice Band Landorus, I don't think Earthquake actually knocks out either Pokemon. The problem is if Landorus EQs, it's banded, and Dialga protects this turn. Because the other play I could have made was just go for Surging Strikes onto the Landorus, and then just Max Wormwind into the Dialga slot. But the hope here is that they just don't max guard. I get the knockout, and by doing so, I also get an attack drop, more importantly, onto their Landorus. The attack drop goes a long way just for this end game. Because the thing is that Dragapult can actually be decent into it after it's intimidated. Or not intimidated, just at -1 attack, I should say. So I'm going to end up maxing Dialga here. Let's see what they go for. Okay, no max guard. They are slower. Oh, that actually is really awkward, I think. The fact that Urshifu outspeeds Landorus here. But they go for Fly. Wow. Okay, so they were trying to avoid any damage. Like, they were trying to avoid a Surging Strikes, for example. Actually, we would have just KO'd them anyway. We don't get the knockout there with Wormwood, but honestly, I think that's okay. Because, like, you'll probably knock out Urshifu here, right? I don't mind that. Oh, they actually target Dialga, even better. Okay. Do you Feign from Life Orb and Hail here is my question? Because if you do, we just switch Urshifu out into Dragapult. Actually, we're going to switch Urshifu out into Dragapult regardless. Yeah, I think, like, the one thing I wasn't sure of is whether or not they were Choice Scarf Landorus here, and that was something that impacted my decision-making, but Dialga always faints after this turn. We can always switch Urshifu out into Dragapult here. Yeah, they had Earthquaked. They actually would be in a really, really good spot, I think. But I can understand why they went for the fly there. Can I actually? Yeah, we also are admin Urshifu here, which is why I wasn't sure about how we were going to play up against the Landorus. But because they went for fly, we're in a really good spot, I think. So we can just switch out here. Any attack works here. I'm going to go for Steel Spike because I like the idea of a defense boost. Yeah. I think going for fly or any 2-turn attack is really, really, really risky. So you always have to, like, ask yourself, like, 3 times before you go for it. Like, is this really worth it? Also, actually, could have just targeted Landorus with Hailstorm there. That, I actually think, is the better play. Because, like, Dialga was always fainting after this turn, right? So if I just Hailstorm Landorus, it's just a double knockout guaranteed in this turn. Unless they switch Dialga out. But Dialga would faint anyway, so that was not the best play on my end. What I was thinking was that, hey, I have this Bandit Urshifu in the back. Surging Strikes is always just going to KO you anyway. But, yeah, I don't love that play on my end. Either way, though, we're still in a pretty good spot. Especially with Landorus being at -1 attack and us getting a defense boost on the Dialga, as well as the Dragapult here. So, let's see what their final Pokemon is. Okay, it's going to be Urshifu. It's Water Urshifu. It's okay with me, I think, because what I can go for here is just Draco Meteor. That should pick up the knockout after Hail. So I'm down to just go for Draco, and if you're my opponent, what can you go for here? Fly with Landorus. I also want to cover for Scarf on the Urshifu, so I'm just going to double up onto it. I guess Urshifu could just protect here, but Landorus is the one protecting. Okay, cool. That was kind of risky, though, I guess. If Urshifu protects and they just Earthquake, would that have been bad for us? No, I think actually because we had the Intimidate on the Landorus and the defense boost on the Dragapult. Ooh, that actually took it decently well. I think it's still fine, honestly, but yeah, I thought we'd bring it down to a potential Sash for sure there. Okay. It's still fine though, right? Because now I just bring out my Urshifu, which I know outspeeds my opponent, and it's a 2v2, essentially. But Landorus just protected. We know it can't protect, or it can, it's just not gonna have great odds, and more importantly, Urshifu can just outspeed my opponent, Landorus, and just KO it before it attacks. Man, the other interesting decision here is, do I actually click Aqua Jet? Because their Urshifu might outspeed us. But I think it's fine, right? Because we can just go for Shadow Ball. Yeah, actually, it's always just Shadow Ball into Urshifu here, and then just Surging Strikes into Landorus. So this is a really interesting match. I think, yeah, Fly was just, it punished them really heavily, but I did make a mistake in not going for Hailstorm there. Actually, was it a mistake? If we go for Hailstorm there, we do pick up the knockout. I switched my Urshifu out into Dragapult. Their Dialga, though, would then actually get an attack off. It would be a 2v1. The question is whether or not a... Let's say you KO my Dialga, Dragapult and my Urshifu could beat their Urshifu. Yeah, probably, because I could just Draco. But, yeah. Key thing here is, in the end, we were just faster with Urshifu against their Landorus. And then the other thing is I didn't waste a huge attack the turn that it was Landorus plus Dialga out on the field. So, yeah, I think if they had Earthquaked in this game, would have played out a little bit differently. Us both having Dialga was pretty interesting. And also, I just realized that Light Screen was still up, hence why we did so little damage with the Draco Meteor into Urshifu just now. I mean, it was still 75%, but yeah, I was like, why are we not bringing it down to its Sash? But the answer is because of Light Screen. So, yeah. The other scary thing here was their Dialga did hang on with a little bit of HP, even from the ban in close combat, right? And so... if we had just picked up the KO there, then even if they had clicked Earthquake, I think we'd still be in a pretty good spot. Unless they were, like, in the end, they weren't Choice Banded, but we didn't know that. So, yeah, I don't know if I, like, absolutely love how I played this game. Just really tough to cover for all the different combinations of Grimmsnarl sets as well as Landorus sets that they could have been. So it wasn't too bad at the end of the day, but that was one in which like I could really see it just turning into my opponent's favor completely off like one really strong Earthquake from them with Telepathy Dialga. Fortunately for us, we're also faster with our Dialga relative to theirs, and our Urshifu was faster than their Landorus, so that gave us a pretty good leg up as well. But that was a good Hailstorm on their end to KO Whimsicott immediately on turn 1. Either way, fun way to get started, and let's keep it going. Alright, next game here, and this is cool. It's a Sun team, but with Zacian. Normally you expect to see, like, Groudon. Not Groudon or Zacian, but Groudon is, you know, quite common with the Torkoal, or not the Torkoal, Venusaur and Charizard combo. I mean, I do have Goggles on Dialga, and I do have Max Hailstorm as well. So, like, what I could do is lead Whimsicott Dialga. Trying to put it in my opponent's perspective. What 4 Pokemon would I go with if I were in their shoes? I guess the other interesting thing is you do need to bring Ninetales to actually set up the weather, right? And it's not like... It's a big difference between Ninetales and something like Groudon, for example. The only question is, where's the Focus Sash on this team? Because Venusaur, Ninetales, and Aleki all are Pokemon that get value out of it. We could honestly max Aleki in this game as well. I'm just nervous about my late game damage output into Zacian. So I'm going to go Whimsicott Dialga, I think, with Dragapult in the back, and then Aleki as my 4th. Mainly because I don't love... The problem here is in not bringing Urshifu, this makes me pretty weak to the Porygon, potentially. If they go Porygon, though, I can just go for Fake Tears into a max move. I just feel like because we have Safety Goggles and they have the Venusaur, like, this can give us a really big advantage if they just try to Sleep Powder us in turn 1. It could be just a game-winning play in which, like, we just get so much out of our first turn. They're going to go with Ninetales and Charizard. Huh. I mean, this is scary. This is definitely scary. So what I can do turn 1 is Tailwind into Max Hailstorm. The problem is if I actually almost feel forced to max Dialga here. If I'm my opponent, I'm just going for Heat Wave and then G-Max Wildfire onto Dialga. I could just accept that I lose both Pokemon. That's actually not a terrible idea right now. Like, what I can do is just Tailwind and Roar of Time on turn 1. I'm actually down for that. Like, yeah, I know I'm going to lose both Pokemon, but the problem is if I max Dialga right now, I just take too much damage with it. I also could have targeted the Ninetales, but the idea here is I set up both the Dragapult and the Aleki, right? So even though I'll probably lose both Pokemon, I'll bring Dragapult out, and then I can just go for Electro Web to KO the Charizard ideally, and also Dragapult can just finish off the Ninetales. Problem is I'm just going to take so much Wildfire damage. Oh! I didn't consider that as an option. Oh, are they going for Hypnosis? Please no. The thing is, this actually works out incredibly for us if they're not clicking Hypnosis. They do click Hypnosis, but they miss. Wow. I mean, that was such a risky turn 1, but I think they were banking off the fact that they were expecting Dialga to max. Because let's say I max there, and then you hit the Hypnosis, I'm in a terrible position. Honestly, even if they hit that, we'd be in an okay spot, but now I think we're in an incredible spot, because I can just go for Fake Tears into Roar of Time. I don't want to max because right now their play is to actually switch out Charizard into Zacian and then Hypnosis again. So this covers for it. But they stay in. Okay, so if we don't miss Roar of Time, this should just put us in such a fantastic position. Nice, and we hit connect. That's a good feeling. That's a really interesting turn 1 by my opponent. I think they wanted to cover for us being Assault Vested, which makes a lot of sense. This game is still far from over, by the way. But I think with the Aleki in the back and with them not getting a max move off at all, we should be in good shape. If I'm my opponent, I'm bringing out Zacian right now. And I think I'm willing to just lose both Pokemon to get a free switch into both Dragapult and Regieleki. So what I can do right now is click Fake Tears into Zacian. Now the thing is, I could switch out Whimsicott, but I really, like, because this would probably allow me to get a second Tailwind up, but I think like Regieleki and Dragapult are too important for this late game. And we're not max speed on Regieleki, but we don't need to be here. We know it's not Scarf Ninetales either. That's good. Yeah, I'm just going to go for Fake Tears onto the Zacian slot and sacrifice both Pokemon this turn, essentially. I guess the fear is if they sub here, but even if you sub Regieleki, you can just break your sub with Electro Web, so it's fine. Solar Blade. It's Solar Blade Zacian. That's so cool. I didn't even know that got that attack. Wow. Mainly because, like, you normally don't see Zacian with... Like, normally on some teams, you'll have Groudon as your restricted. Okay, so covering for a switch there, which makes sense. I wonder if... Oh, that is interesting. I actually really like their decision to... Hypnosis there. I think that's really smart. Okay. I have one more turn of Tailwind to play with right now. Makes sense for them to just protect Zacian and Heat Wave, or switch Zacian out. I have to give up Whimsicott here. Question is what I want to do with Dialga. What will they switch into is the question. I think here I'm fine just going for a Roar of Time onto Ninetales. They're probably sashed. Cool, they protect, great. I was gonna say they're probably Focus Sash, but if they're not, like, this also really messes them up, right? Although the scary thing is that Zacian is so good in a Dragapult that, like, I might still lose the game just because they have it. Oh, and they're not sashed. Okay, cool. So the thing is, now you're stuck perpetually with this -2 special defense Zacian for the remainder of the game. That's good. Okay, their last one is Regieleki. Oh, that's actually a really big issue for us. If I wake up this turn, it's a guaranteed win. But with them having Regieleki, actually, and I stay asleep. Oh dear. Yeah, like, this is where us being max speed is really, or not being max speed can actually be really bad. The decision to Hypnosis Whimsicott rather than give me a free switch in actually may have won my opponent this game. That was really well done. Unless their Zacian is slower than my Dragapult. There is a slight possibility of that. Oh, yeah, this is just the strength of Zacian. Truthfully, like, Dragapult's not very good into it if it outspeeds us. Okay, if you're my opponent, your play here is to just Electro Web and then Behemoth Blade. Probably the Dragapult. I mean, I don't think I can afford to just max this and then let it get one shot. Okay, so I'm going to Fire Blast here. I'm going to actually max the Regieleki. Does base 140 one-shot Zacian is the question. Maybe the Roar of Times are a little bit aggressive on my end as well, but yeah, this is just the power. Like, if I had just brought, what, NDD instead, then I could have gone NDD, Follow Me, Max Airstream, and then Max Flare into Zacian. Maybe they're not max speed Regieleki as well. They are. Dragapult's the one that dodges it, but that's not the one that mattered. Just curious if Dragapult was actually faster here. Nope, it wasn't. Yeah. Okay, so the play I made was correct then, I think. I didn't have any other option here. It's funny, I was just talking about how Regieleki being, like, not max speed isn't really a big deal, but it actually was a big deal. I don't think Max Lightning one-shots here. I needed to, but I don't think it does. Let's see. Okay, it is. Wait, was that enough? This is where having Rising Voltage is actually really important because it gives you the burst of base power. Okay, it actually was enough. Well, now it's a 1v1. I don't think their Regieleki one-shots us. We have base 140 Magnet boosted Max Lightning, so I hope it's enough. Let's see. Unless they have Rising Voltage as well. Even then, I would expect to survive with Dynamax. Okay, they protect. Well, that's always guaranteed free damage. Oh, I see what they're going for. Their play is to just double protect here, I think. Yeah, they're going for the double protect. Because if you get the double protect, you know you outspeed me, and then you can KO me with Electric Terrain being up. Let's see. Okay, they don't get it. Nice. Yeah, that's their only win con, because like even a crit T-Bolt would not KO me, so good on them to recognize that that was the win condition. And, you know, 1/3 of the time they will win this game. So, yeah. This was such an interesting match, because like turn 1 did not play how I expected it to at all. My expectation was to lose both of my Pokemon on turn 1, but get a switch into Alecki and Dragapult and just overwhelm them with the offense from there. So, even knowing with Hypnosis and Max Power, I wouldn't change how I played turn 1 at all. Obviously, we got lucky dodging Hypnosis on the first turn, but I think it would have been okay. This is a good example of a game, though, where my opponent did a really good job not letting me just, like, run away with Tailwind. And what I mean by that is, like, going for Hypnosis rather than Heat Wave was really smart. If you go for Heat Wave, you just pick up knockouts, you give me a free switch in, that's really good for us. When you keep Whimsicott out on the field, it makes things a lot more awkward for me, especially because the Whimsicott guaranteed cannot go for an attack after getting hit by Hypnosis the first time around. So, they did a great job stalling out my Tailwind, and even though Hypnosis is a really volatile attack, it's one that just like makes a lot of sense to run on the Ninetales. I'm mainly curious on the item there then, because Focus Sash is normally what I would expect there, so I have no idea, but that was a really cool team. That was a very unorthodox turn 1 play, but it's one that literally would be a game-winning play if I just maxed Dialga in turn 1 and they hit Hypnosis. So it's like, you know, it's you're taking a big risk there, but if it pays off, it essentially is just going to seal you up the game immediately. Because imagine if I do max, I hit into the max guard, and then they Hypnosis Dialga. I don't have a max to play with anymore. And without a max, there's no way I can win that game, I think, given how much offense they had with Alecki and Zacian in the back. But I'm just really glad our Alecki was actually able to one-shot Zacian with Max Lightning, so that was huge. But yeah, that was really, really fun. So let's look for one more. Alright, last one here, and it is also another Sun team. This one with Torkoal rather than Ninetales, pretty standard. Just as I was saying, hey, you know, it's funny, you don't really see Zacian very much with Sun. We actually run into 2 in a row, so that was maybe not exactly the most correct statement. Anyway, in the last game, we went with Whimsicott, Dialga, Dragapult, Alecki. In this game, can we go with that again? I think generally yes. Grimmsnarl concerns me a lot. I just really don't love Urshifu here, even though it's really good into Charizard, Landorus, and Torkoal, especially if we set up the Hail. But I don't know, I just think one, safety goggles on Dialga continues to make me feel good. Although, I guess, like, one thing I should be considering a little bit more in these matchups is, like, would my opponent really bring Venusaur, given that you're up against a team with Dragapult and Whimsicott? Depends on the Venusaur set, right? Because if you're like weakness policy, you actually would love to bring Venusaur and just get hit by a max airstream, get your policy activated, go for Vine Lash. But one thing my opponent might be considering is, hey, I don't really want to bring Venusaur because you have both Dialga and Dragapult, and neither of those take much damage from a G-Max Vine Lash. Dragapult in itself walls Venusaur decently well, because the best thing you can go for is essentially a Max Quake into it. So I'm not sure I actually need to respect Venusaur that much. And, you know, it's funny, because like the main reason you want to respect Venusaur is because it can put things to sleep, but my last game was actually Ninetales putting things to sleep. It's gonna be Grimmsnarl and Landorus. Okay, I'm like generally okay with this, but there's a lot like can go wrong on turn 1. And that's what's scary here. They could fake out Max Airstream in a Whimsicott. I'd actually be okay with that trade generally. I lean towards Tailwind. I just really normally dislike maxing Dialga in front of the Grimmsnarl, which can go for trick stuff. But I do think in this scenario it is appropriate. Because if it means one-shotting their Maxmon and Landorus, that would be really good, I think. Oh, not necessarily even, because let's say they trick a full instance onto us. And then they bring out Zacian, that's really bad. Man, this, like, Grim early pressure with Zacian in the back is such a strong combo, actually. I'm still going for it, but yeah, honestly, if this is trick... Oh, okay, that's also a really good play into Zacian. There's Torkoal, okay. Well, that's not the end of the world then, at least. The big question here is what Grimmsnarl set are you? Because if you are just like a dual screen set, this is incredible for us. But I highly suspect it'll be like Trick. So we'll see. Okay, let's say it is Trick. It's still okay for us, but now the problem is I have very, very, very little damage output into Landers. The problem though is like, let's say I assume it's I don't respect the Trick, or sorry, I respect the Trick. Landers can just max in front of us and max Quake, and that's also really bad. Oh, but it's Light Screen. Okay. Well, it still could be Trick Light Screen actually, so I shouldn't like just breathe a huge sigh of relief immediately. But I'm at least happy to see that. It's honestly really good damage on a Torkoal. Is that a crit? No, it wasn't even. I'll take it. I mean, Torkoal's special defense is really subpar, but yeah, that's great. This next turn is interesting because I could like they're gonna have Zacian in the back. Because the thing is, right now I can intentionally not knock out Grimmsnarl and just like force this to be a 2v1. But my problem here is that Torkoal could very easily protect this turn. So I want to almost go out into Dragapult here and go for a max Steel Spike into Grimm, just because Grimmsnarl having Protect here is relatively unlikely. If I Wormwind into Torkoal into a Protect, I really don't like how that plays out for us, because I think right now I need to maximize my max turns. And like, Torkoal isn't that scary. At best, you go for a Yawn, maybe a Body Press. You get Eruption as well, but that's not that scary right now. Okay, they just go for Thunder Wave. I think I'm okay with that, I guess, but could have got the knockout on a Torkoal. Fortunately for us, we don't get fully paralyzed, so that's good at least. Okay, this also gives us a defense boost on Dragapult, which is actually really valuable right now, in my opinion. Thunder Wave also means you can't Yawn nearly as easily, so that's also good. And a defense boost here is very good into both Landorus and Zacian. Okay, normally I'd be concerned about getting burnt there, but we are special Dragapult, so it's actually not that bad. The problem, though, is that I didn't bring any physical damage, and this team is almost entirely special to begin with. Urshifu is really your only physical Pokemon, so them setting up light screen is really valuable for them. Let's see who they bring out right now. I would think Zacian, but Zacian is interesting because I've got this defense boost, and I've got Fire Blast, more importantly, on Dragapult, which is very good for us right now. This is where Special Dragapult's so nice. Aleki is completely useless for me, though, if I do not... in the endgame against the Landorus. If I were my opponent, truthfully, I would probably just bring out Zacian and protect the Zacian this turn to stall out my last turn of Dynamax. I think that's a good play. T-Wave is what makes this tricky. I wanted to bring Indeedee to set up Psychic Terrain, but it feels really awkward, like how to properly slot in Indeedee. Yeah, so there's Zacian. I mean, you would think Zacian protects here, right? If Zacian protects, I can Wormwind Torkoal, Fire Blast. But then the thing is, you bring out Landorus. I think I'm actually going to Flare Blitz the Zacian and Max Steel Spike here, because even if you protect, well, I get another defense boost and you don't get a free switch into your Landorus. Now, they could hard switch Torkoal out into Landorus, but that's really risky in my opinion. Because if I just Wormwind that slot, your only Max Mon takes way too much damage. The thing is that Torkoal does not apply any pressure right now, and they don't protect Zacian. Okay, that's, I would say, good for us. Well, we'll see if we get the knockout here. They set up sub, but that's actually totally okay with me. I don't get paired, which is huge. Avoiding the pair there is the biggest deal right now. Okay, not bad. Now your Zacian is just in KO range from a Fire Blast. And I'm at +2 defense with both of these two Pokemon. The defense boost is really what I was looking for here. Body Press does no damage. Okay, perfect. What an intense game so far. The thing is that Landorus from their end could very easily pull off a comeback right now. So even though this looks amazing for us, because I brought Aleki as my last one rather than Urshifu, this is still really dicey. I brought Aleki for the same reason I did in the last game. Didn't really foresee a scenario in which we'd be in this spot. Maybe that's my bad. Here's what's interesting. You would think Zacian protects here, so I could actually withdraw Dragapult out. Just feels so bad to give up defense boosts here. They could be Sacred Sword as well. Oh, I could Trick Room. Wait, that's actually sick. I think the play is to Trick Room here. That's okay if we get the Trick Room up. Actually, even if we don't get Trick Room up, this is okay, I think. The main idea is so that we can click Blizzard under Trick Room. It's good damage on a Landorus, and we get a special defense drop. That's huge. Surprised they switched the Zacian out, because, yeah, the only Pokemon you can max right now really is Lando. They do okay damage there, but it's not really that much. Nice, and we actually get Trick Room up. That's huge. That is huge. Because it means I can click Blizzard now. And we'll outspeed them under Trick Room. So it's fun to once again use a team with both Tailwind and Trick Room and then utilize how you can, like, flip those. But we've gotten really lucky this game in the sense that I didn't get a single full para yet, and that's a really big deal. I was really heavily contemplating clicking Blizzard there. That would have been really sweet. If you're my opponent right now, you could actually Dynamax the Torkoal, which is wild to think about. You could also switch Torkoal out right now. This game is still far from over because, yeah, I got Trick Room up, but most of my Pokemon here are actually really fast. If I were my opponent, the question is, do you have Max Guard on Landorus? So what I want to do is just... would I rather Drake or a Shadow Ball here? I went for Shadow Ball. I don't know if that's the correct play. The good thing is that Torkoal just doesn't do much right now for my opponent. You could max Torkoal, which would be wild. You could actually max Torkoal to max Flare. Wait, that would actually be really cool. That actually might be the play for them. Okay, but they're maxing Landorus. Cool. That works for me. Because I'm getting a Blizzard off. But they have Light Screen up, and if they're Assault Vest, surely you survive Blizzard, right? This is so close. And just body pressing, that's fine by me. We survive. No full para, fortunately. That's huge. But I don't get the KO into Landorus, okay? They're gonna Quake into Dialga. Oh my goodness. I actually think they now win the game because I awkwardly set up Trick Room. I needed to get the Blizzard off. I should have just Shadow Ball the Landorus slot here. But I wanted to cover for Landorus protecting and then a Torkoal switch in. But had I just targeted Landorus there, I think it would have been GG. But I actually think now I lose the game. And I lose because I can't do anything with the Lecky. This was such an interesting dynamic. Yeah, all I needed to do was double up on Landorus there. Like, Assault Vest is the most obvious item there anyway, right? So had I Shadow Ball there, the end game, we would just bring in a Lecky. Burning Jealousy wouldn't do any damage in a Dragapult. And then it would still come down to how fast their Zacian was. Because if their Zacian outspeeds Dragapult under Trick Room, then they would still win the game, I think. I'm still trying to think how we can win this one. If I bring Whimsicott out right now, I can try to reverse their Trick Room. I think that's the most intriguing play right now. All I needed to do also was to just bring Urshifu over Alecki in this game. Like, Alecki offered me absolutely nothing, and that was a really big mistake, but couldn't have known that. And I do think Alecki is pretty good, especially because of like what we saw in that last game, but this is what I was saying though in team preview. How likely is my opponent going to bring Venusaur? Because if we know they're not going to, it makes Urshifu 10 times stronger. So yeah, If I had Urshifu in the back there, this would just be a lock easily, but I did not bring it. Like, Aqua Jet would have just finished off everything right now. So if you're my opponent, you can just go for Burning Jealousy. Switch out Aleki. Okay, I don't, like, this is my only chance of winning. It would be to survive Burning Jealousy, for them to target the Dragapult with Landorus, and then reverse Trick Room. Because if we actually accomplish that, we can win the game for sure. Because then I can just outspeed with Dragapult. I don't even know if we survive Burning Jealousy and Whimsicott. Like, probably not, but it's my best bet. Okay, we do survive. They don't have any special attack investment. They go for Quake. But the problem is, like, I just don't KO you. Right? Unless Moonblast crits Landorus. It does create a win con for us, though. All I need to do is Shadow Ball the Landorus that turn. Or Draco it. Just attack it in general. This was a really fun game, though. And, like, yeah, it came down... Like, this is a game that I can easily say I'm happy losing, because I can find multiple ways where I can improve. One was in Team Preview, bringing Urshifu out. One was in how I played, targeting Landorus, so... I think the play is to just go for a crit. Or they could choke and protect Torkoal here for some reason, too. I could play towards the choke. So the question is whether or not I want to play towards that or just hope that we crit. I don't think they're ever protecting Torkoal here. Okay, wait, low-key I have Fly. I don't think that changes anything, though. I am going to go for the critical hit Moonblast onto Landorus. That's my best bet. Yeah, they didn't protect Torkoal. I don't even know if this KOs, actually. Oh my goodness, it doesn't. Oh, we were so close. We were so close. Okay, max Rockfall, which makes sense. You set up the sand. This was a really fun game, though, so I can't complain. I'm just curious, like, I would expect their Zacian outspeed our Dragapult, so it's like... That means if I had just targeted Landorus there, this Dragapult would have then been able to just KO both the Torkoal and Zacian under Trick Room, so I really messed up not doubling Landorus that turn, but just a little bit nervous about Landorus, like, having Max Guard there, but Assault Vest is just, like, the most common item on it in a Dynamax format, and if it's not Life Orb, then it just, like, lends even more space to it being AV. So I should have just assumed the most common item choice, assumed that I couldn't protect, and then just, yeah, gone for Blizzard Draco there immediately. So the Trick Room play was cool. I think the main thing was that, like, that was, like, an adaptation that I wasn't expecting to make, so it kind of threw me off my game plan, and then I didn't fully think through everything, because I was nervous about a Max Guard into a Zacian switch in. Yeah, but I guess even if they had done that, they would still probably win the game, so I needed to just knock out Landorus on his turn of Dynamax. And so, yeah, this was one in which, like, it is frustrating in the sense that, yeah, if I bring Urshifu, that game's a lock, or if I just make a better play and target Landorus there, that's a lock, but there's a lot that I had to consider going into it, and, like, that's, once again, the versatility of Sun. But I think the main thing is that, like, neither of my opponents in the last two games brought Venusaur, so, like, I should be more willing to bring Urshifu up because I can actually change the weather with Max Hailstorm with the, with the Dialga. Meaning, if I can change the weather, then Surging Strike's actually so good into so many of these Pokemon like Charizard and Landorus. The only awkward thing is, like, the speed interaction with Urshifu, right? Because it's slower than Charizard, so if I'm not Tailwinding, you can just one-shot us. And, like, yeah. It's one in which, like, then I have a pretty narrow win con to actually enable the Urshifu, which is Max Hailstorming and eliminating their weather user. But in this game, like, we actually came pretty close, and we would have put Urshifu in a position to succeed. So I don't 100% regret bringing Aleki, but unfortunately, they did a great job, choosing Landorus to Dynamax, then playing towards that. So, yeah, it's a really volatile matchup, and that was one in which I think it was just really fun. And even though we lost, like, yeah, my opponent played well, and we got to make some cool plays, so I can't complain. That's going to be it for this one, so thank you so much as always for watching. Leave a like if you enjoyed. Don't forget to answer the question of the day. Thanks to TSL Tang for the team once again, and I'll see you all soon. All right, peace.